I have killed 31 things in my life, and I am telling you this so you understand who is speaking. I am not soft. My kind do not cry. When the human came to our academy, I laughed at him the way the wind laughs at a candle. I want you to remember that I laughed. It will make the rest of this harder to believe, and I need you to believe it because I was there, and I still do not fully understand what I saw. My name is Torvek. I am of the Skarn. If you have never seen one of us, imagine something the size of two of your kind stacked shoulder to shoulder, with skin like wet stone and a jaw that unhinges. We are the apex of our world. We were the apex of 11 worlds before the Coalition even learned our name. When the Coalition fleet finally reached the Skarn homeworld, they did not come to conquer us. They came to recruit us. That is the kind of thing we are. So you can understand why the Veil Threshold Academy exists only for our sort. The threshold does not train soldiers. It trains the things that hunt soldiers. Every cadet who walks its black halls comes from a species that sits at the top of its planet's food chain. The Skarn, the Gaul, the W-Sith with their patient venom, the Dron who can taste your fear from across a room. We are the ones the galaxy sends when negotiation is over, when there is nothing left to say, and something needs to be ended. The threshold sits on a moon we call Kar. There is no sun on Kar. There is a gas giant the color of an old bruise that fills half the sky, and it gives us a dull, endless twilight, never day, never night, just that heavy purple glow pressing down on everything like a hand. The air is thin and cold and tastes of iron. When the wind comes off the black plains, it makes a sound in the tower vents like something large breathing in its sleep. First-year cadets don't sleep well their first weeks. Then they learn that the breathing is only wind and they sleep fine, and that is the first lesson the threshold teaches you. Nothing here is trying to kill you yet. Wait. I was in my second cycle when it happened. I remember the day because it was intake day, and intake days were the only days that broke the routine. New cadets would arrive by drop shuttle, dumped onto the receiving platform still smelling of their homeworlds, still walking like they owned the ground. We upper cadets would gather on the observation ring above and watch them come in, and we would place bets, not on who would graduate, on who would survive the first month. It sounds cruel. It was cruel. The threshold made us that way and called it honesty. That intake, there were 9 of them. I remember the Gaul first, because you always notice a Gaul, 3 meters of coiled muscle and a crest that flares blood orange when they're excited. And this one's crest was flaring the whole way across the platform, drunk on its own arrival. There was a Dron, thin and gray and quiet, already scanning the walls for exits the way Dron do. 2 W-Sith moving in that liquid slither, tasting the air. A Korth with plating like a warship. The others I don't remember. I don't remember them because of the 9th one. The 9th one was small. I don't mean small for its kind. I mean small. It came down the shuttle ramp last, and at first I thought it was equipment. A supply crate on legs, maybe, or a service drone. It stood upright on 2 legs like a Gaul, but it barely came up to a Gaul's ribs. It had no crest, no plating, no visible weapon systems, no claws worth the name. Its skin was bare and pink-brown and looked, honestly, like something that had been peeled. It wore a thin gray uniform 2 sizes too big, and it carried a single bag over one shoulder, and it walked down that ramp into a courtyard full of the deadliest creatures in the known galaxy like it was arriving at a job. The whole observation ring went quiet, then somebody laughed, then all of us laughed. "What is that?" said Merrick beside me. Merrick was Skarn like me, my litter cousin, the closest thing I had to a friend. "Is that a pet? Did one of them bring a pet?" "It's on the intake list," said someone else, checking their slate. "Look, slot 9, it's a cadet." "That is not a cadet," Merrick said. "That is a snack that filled out the wrong form." We laughed harder. Down on the platform, the small thing stopped and looked up. It looked right up at the observation ring, at all of us leaning over the rail with our jaws hanging and our crests up, and I swear to you it found my eyes specifically in that crowd of monsters, and it did not flinch. It just looked at me for a moment, a little tired, the way you look at weather you can't do anything about. Then it turned and followed the intake drone into the black doors of the threshold. And that was the first time I saw a human being, and I felt nothing but contempt. Remember that I told you I laughed. I need you to remember. Its name was Adam Ray's. We learned that the next morning in the assembly hall, when Instructor Vosh read the intake roll. Vosh was drawn, old and gray and missing one eye to something that had presumably regretted taking it. When Vosh spoke, everyone listened, because Vosh had trained cadets for 60 cycles and had personally failed more of them than most academies ever admitted. To fail at the threshold did not mean to be sent home. I will explain that later. It is important, and I am not ready to say it yet. Vosh read the names in that flat, drawn voice. Skarn Gal W. Sith Korth, and then Rays Adam, species, human, origin, Sol 3, a pause, even Vosh paused. Designation, apex candidate. The hall did not laugh because you did not laugh in Vosh's hall, but I felt the ripple go through all of us. Apex candidate. That was the classification we all carried. It meant your species sat at the top of its world's kill order. It meant you were, by the reckoning of the coalition, a natural-born predator worthy of the threshold. And they had given it to that. I found out later, everyone found out later what had happened. It was an administrative error. A clerk in a coalition processing office 40 light-years away had been logging apex candidates from newly contacted species, and Sol 3, the human homeworld, had only just entered coalition space. Humans were new. Nobody knew what they were yet. And some tired clerk, looking at a Sol 3 military dossier that described a soldier's kill record and combat commendations, and something called a Medal of Valor, had ticked the Apex candidate box and routed Adam Rays to the only academy in the sector that trained Apex candidates. Nobody caught it. Nobody caught it because nobody imagined a human would survive the shuttle ride, let alone the intake. By the time anyone realized the mistake, Adam Rays was already standing in Vosh's hall in a uniform 2 sizes too big, being counted among monsters. And the threshold had a rule, older than any of us, carved into the black stone above the assembly doors. Once inside, only 3 doors out. Graduate, fail, or feed the planes. There was no door marked sent home. There was no clerical exemption. The paperwork said Adam Rays was an apex candidate, and the threshold did not argue with paperwork. It only tested it. I remember watching him during that first assembly. He stood at the end of the row of new cadets, and he had to stand on the balls of his feet just to see over the Korth in front of him. When Vosh dismissed us, the crowd of cadets moved toward the doors in a great scaled tide, and I watched the human step carefully between the crushing feet of creatures that could end him without noticing. And I thought, with total certainty, the way you think the sun will rise, except we had no sun, that thing will be dead by the end of the week. I was wrong. I have been wrong before. I have never been so completely, so magnificently wrong. The first trial at the threshold is called the descent. They wake you in the false night, that hour when the gas giant dips lowest and the twilight goes almost black, and they march you out onto the black plains without warning and without explanation. You are given nothing. No weapon, no water, no light. You are shown a beacon on a ridge line perhaps 40 kilometers out, a single red point in the dark, and you are told one thing: reach it before the planes reach you. The plains of Kar are not empty. That is the joke of it, the thing they don't tell the new cadets. Kar has its own predators, native things that were hunting in that dark long before the threshold was built and the descent releases them. Nothing that would trouble a full-grown Skarn. Understand, we are the apex. We do not fear the local wildlife. The descent is not about surviving the plains. It is about how you move through them, whether you panic, whether you keep your head. Whether, when something screams in the dark beside you, you are the kind of creature that runs, or the kind that turns toward the sound. 9 new cadets went out onto the plains that false night. We upper cadets watched from the tower on the thermal feeds, the way we always did, laying our bets. The Gaul ran. Of course it did. Gaul are fast and proud, and it wanted to reach the beacon first, wanted to arrive glowing and triumphant, and it burned itself out inside the first 10 kilometers and had to be recovered by the drones, shivering and humiliated. The W Sith did well. They always do, patient and low and silent. The Dron vanished off the feeds entirely, which is exactly what a Dron should do. The Korth simply walked in a straight line and let nothing turn it, which is the Korth way, and it worked. And then there was the human. We found him on the feeds almost by accident. Merrick was the one who spotted the small heat signature moving slow and steady across the low ground, and he called me over, laughing, expecting to watch it die. It did not die. I want to describe what we saw because it is the first thing that made me stop laughing, and I did not even understand at the time why it bothered me. The human moved through that dark plane like it belonged to a species that had done this before. It stayed low. It used the ground, every fold, every rock, every dry channel. It read them and moved through them like water finding the low path. When one of the native things came screaming out of the dark at it, we all leaned in, ready for the end. The human did not run. The human did not freeze. The human dropped to the ground, went absolutely still and waited. And the native thing, a scrabbling six-legged hunter longer than the human was tall, went past it in the dark, confused, having lost the target it was sure it had seen. And when it passed, the human rose up behind it, silent, and it did something with a rock in both its strange, soft hands, something quick and brutal and precise, and the six-legged thing went down and did not get up. The tower went very quiet. Lucky, Merrick said, but he didn't sound sure. The human field dressed the kill in the dark. It did not eat. We learned later that humans cook, that they carry fire the way we carry claws, that they do not put anything into their soft bodies until they have first done violence to it with heat. But it took something from the kill, some length of the thing's own body, and it moved on, and 40 kilometers of black plain later, while 3 of the 9 new cadets were still lost or recovered or shivering in the dark, the human reached the beacon. It was not first. The Korth reached the beacon first and the W Sith closed behind. The human was third. Third out of 9. On its first night on a world it had never seen, among predators bred for exactly this, a hairless, soft, two-legged thing from a planet nobody had heard of came in third. Vosh's report the next morning listed all 9 cadets by their descent standing. When Vosh read the human's name, Rays, third, efficient, that word landed in the hall like a dropped stone. Efficient. Vosh did not give praise. Vosh gave assessments, and efficient from Vosh was more than most of us had ever earned. I looked down the row at the human. It stood there in the 2 big uniforms, small among the monsters, and it did not look proud. That was the thing that unsettled me most, thinking back. The Gaul, when it did well, glowed. We Skarn, when we did well, showed our teeth. The human, when Vosh named it third out of 9, just gave a small tired nod, like a worker being told the shift was done. Like this was a job. Like it had done this before and expected to do it again tomorrow. I did not laugh at Adam Rays after the descent, but I did not fear him either. Not yet. I told myself it was luck and the dark and the plains being kind. I told myself a lot of things. The plains would keep telling me the truth, until I ran out of lies. Let me tell you about the thing that happened between me and the human, because that is where this story really lives, and I have been circling it because it shames me. 2 weeks after the descent, we were paired for combat drill. The threshold paired cadets across cycles sometimes, an upper cadet against a lower one, to teach the young ones what they were up against and to keep us old ones sharp. It was supposed to be a mercy for the lower cadet, a chance to learn from a stronger opponent. When Vosh's drill roster paired me, Torvik of the Skarn, second cycle with Rays, Adam, human, first cycle, the entire drill hall found it very funny. I found it funny too. I want to be honest about what I intended. I did not intend to kill him. Killing in drill was forbidden, and I was not a killer of the helpless. But I intended to hurt him. I intended to put him on the ground quickly and humiliatingly, to show him and everyone watching exactly what the gap was between a real apex predator and a clerical error in a gray uniform. I was going to teach the human its place. That is who I was. I told you at the beginning that I laughed. This is the part I was building to. We faced each other in the drill ring. I came up to my full height and I let my jaw unhinge, and I made the low sound that Skarn make before we strike, the sound that has stopped the hearts of things much larger than a human. Around the ring, cadets watched. Merrick watched. Vosh watched from above with that one gray eye. The human looked up at me, all the way up, and it did something I did not expect. It relaxed. I have fought many creatures. When something faces a Skarn, it tightens, its breath goes shallow, its muscles lock, its body prepares to flee even as its pride tells it to stay. Every instinct in a living thing screams at it to get away from us. That is what we are. That is the gift the top of the food chain gives you. Everything below you carries a little animal in its chest that knows your death, and that animal betrays it the moment it faces you. The human had no such animal, or if it did, it had killed it a long time ago. When I made the killing sound and rose to my full height, Adam Reyes let his shoulders drop. He breathed out slow. He shifted his weight low and easy and put his soft hands up loose, and he looked at me not with fear and not even with defiance, with attention. The way you look at a problem. The way a hunter looks at prey, actually. That was it. That was the thing I did not have a name for at the time. The human was looking at me the way I had looked at every creature I had ever killed. I struck. I was fast. I have always been fast, faster than a thing my size has any right to be, and I came in low and hard with my full weight behind a strike that would have folded a Gaul. The human was not there. I don't mean it dodged exactly. Skarn are hard to dodge. We know how to take the space you'll flee into. The human did something worse than dodge. It read me. It saw the strike begin, saw it in my shoulders, in the shift of my weight, some tiny tell I did not know I had, and it moved not away but aside and in, past the edge of my strike. Close, closer than anything sane would come to a Skarn, and it put one soft hand on my striking arm and it helped me. It added its small weight to my own momentum, and it turned me, used the force I had already committed, and suddenly the ground was where my face was going. I am Skarn. I do not fall. I caught myself barely on the wall of the ring, plating scraping black stone, and I came around fast and furious and I struck again. And again the human was not where my strike went. And again a soft hand touched me, not to hurt me. I understood that even in the rage, the human was not trying to hurt me. A soft hand touched my arm, my flank, guiding, redirecting, turning my own strength into the thing that unbalanced me. It went on like that. I don't know for how long. It felt like a long time. I struck, and the human flowed around the strike and used it, and every time I ended up further off balance, more tired, more furious, and the human ended up calm and low and ready, having spent almost nothing. I was pouring out everything I had. It was pouring out water in a stream, patient, no waste. And slowly, in front of the entire drill hall, in front of Merrick, in front of Vosh's one gray eye, I understood that I could not touch it. This soft, hairless, weaponless thing, this thing I had come to humiliate, I could not lay a single strike on it, and it was not even breathing hard. I did the thing you should never do. I lost my temper completely. I abandoned form. I abandoned everything the threshold had beaten into me, and I just threw myself at it, all weight and rage and jaw, the way a young Skarn fights, the way you fight when the thing in your chest has taken over, and you have forgotten that you are supposed to be more than an animal. And the human ended it. I never fully saw how. That is the truth, and I have thought about it 1,000 times. There was a foot behind my ankle that should not have been able to reach my ankle. There was a soft hand at my throat, the one place a Skarn's plating does not cover, the one soft place. And how did it know? How did it know in 2 weeks the one soft place? And there was my own enormous furious weight betraying me. And the black stone floor came up and took me, and I was down, all of me. The whole terrible bulk of me flat on my back on the drill floor. and there was a small point of pressure at my throat, exact and controlled, and a quiet voice above me said, in coalition standard, not cruel, not triumphant, just factual. Yield. The drill hall was silent. I have never heard the threshold so silent. I yielded. There was nothing else to do. I felt the pressure lift from my throat, and I saw a soft hand appear in front of my face, offering to help me up. Help me up. The thing had put me on the ground in front of everyone I knew, and it was offering me its hand like it was nothing, like we were two workers and one had slipped. I did not take the hand. I got up on my own, shaking, and I could not look at anyone, and I walked out of the drill ring, and the shame of it was so total that I did not speak for the rest of that false day. Later, in the dark of the sleeping tier, Merrick found me. He did not laugh. That is how I knew it was real, that it was not just me, that everyone had seen the same impossible thing. Merrick was quiet for a long time, and then he said the thing that all of us were beginning to think and none of us wanted to say. Torvik, what are they? I had no answer. I lay in the dark of that sunless moon and I listened to the wind breathing in the vents, and for the first time since I had come to the threshold, I was afraid. Not of the plains, not of the trials, of a thing that came up to my ribs and had put me on my back with my own strength and then offered me its hand. That was the night I stopped laughing for good. I need to tell you about the humans now, about what they are, because you are of some species reading this, and you need to understand, the way I eventually understood, why the whole threshold changed after Adam Rays. We the Skarn, the Gaul, all of us at the top of our worlds, we are apex predators, but we are finished apex predators. Do you understand what I mean? Our worlds gave us everything. Size, plating, claws, jaws, venom, speed. We sit at the top because we were built to sit there. Nothing on our worlds could challenge us, so nothing did, and so we became what we are, perfect, complete, and I did not understand this until the human idle, comfortable at the top. We hunt because we are hungry or because we are ordered to. We are the strongest thing in the room and we have always known it, and it has made us, in a way I am ashamed to say, a little bit lazy in our souls. The human homeworld did not do that to the human. I learned about Saul 3 slowly over cycles in pieces from Adam Rays himself once he began much later to speak to me. And here is what I learned. The humans did not come from the top of their food chain. They came from the middle. Do you understand what that means? I did not at first. On the human homeworld, when humans were young as a species, there were things bigger than them, faster than them, stronger than them with real claws and real jaws, things that hunted humans, ate human young, drove human packs out of the good ground. The humans were soft and slow and weak, and they had no plating and no venom, and their claws were a joke, and there were 100 things on their own world that could kill them without effort. And the humans looked at all of that, at a whole world of things stronger than themselves, and they did not run away to some safe corner and stay small. They decided to become the apex anyway. They had nothing to do it with, so they made everything themselves. They had no claws, so they made claws out of stone and then out of metal. They had no speed, so they learned to run forever. Adam told me this, and I did not believe it. Humans cannot run fast, but they can run for days. They will chase a faster thing until it simply falls down from exhaustion and dies. They are the thing on their world that never stops coming. They had no jaws, so they made fire, and they cooked the world until it fit inside them. They were weak alone, so they became strong together, in numbers, in plans, in a kind of terrible patient cooperation that let 10 soft weak things kill something that could have killed any one of them 100 times over. They clawed their way to the top of a world that had never wanted to give them the top. They took it, from things stronger than themselves, with nothing but the insides of their own soft skulls and a refusal, a total, species-deep, unkillable refusal, to accept that they were prey. That is what a human is. That is what they put in our academy by mistake. We apex predators, we inherited the top. The humans conquered it. And the difference between inheriting a thing and conquering it is the difference between the Gaul who burned out running to the beacon and Adam Reyes, who came in third and did not even smile. The threshold thought it was going to test a human. The threshold did not understand what testing does to a human. You cannot threaten a species into submission when the entire species is built, from the ground up, out of 100,000 years of being threatened and refusing to submit. Fear is our weapon, we apex predators. Fear is the gift we give the things below us. And the humans, somewhere back in the dark of their homeworld, had looked fear in its face and simply decided it was not going to work on them anymore. I did not know all of this on the night Merrick asked me what are they. But I began to learn it, and the threshold began to learn it. And by the end of that cycle, everything had changed, and the change did not stop with me. The change reached all of us. It reached the instructors. It reached, in the end, even Vash. And it started, I have to tell you how it started, because it is the thing I understand least and believe most. It started when the human began, one by one, to save our lives. The first life the human saved was the Gaul's. I have to tell you about the Gaul, because I have spoken of it with contempt, and that is not fair. Its name was Ozic. It was proud the way a young thing is proud when it has never once been beaten, loud, bright-crested, always first to speak and last to think. On the descent it had burned itself out running. In the drill hall it had watched me go down under the human's hands, and it had not learned the lesson I learned. Ozic decided the human had beaten me because I was slow. Ozic decided that it, being fast, would not lose. You already know how that ends. But it is worse than you think, because Ozic did not challenge the human in the drill ring, where there are rules. Ozic challenged the human on the plains. The second great trial of the threshold is the hunt. They release you onto the black plains in pairs, and they give you a target, a native beast, tagged and tracked, something large enough to be dangerous, and the pair that brings it down together passes. Together. That is the whole point of the hunt. The threshold pairs you with someone and forces you to trust them at the exact moment trust is hardest, when there is a thing in the dark trying to kill you both. They paired Ozic with the human. I think Vash did it on purpose. I think Vash, with that one gray eye, had already seen more than the rest of us. Merrick and I watched from the tower on the thermal feeds, and this time there was no laughing. The whole upper cycle watched in silence. We had all felt the ground shift under us since the drill ring. We watched two heat signatures move out onto the plain, a tall, bright one, fast and impatient, and a small, steady one, low and slow, and we watched the tall one pull ahead the moment the trial began, because Ozic could not stand to be behind, not even here, not even with its life in the balance. The target that false night was a plains drake. I do not know your world, so I will only say this. A plains drake is the one native thing on Kar that a full-grown skarn treats with respect. It is bigger than me. It hunts by heat and by sound, and it is patient, and it is fast at the end, faster than anything that size should be, and it kills by taking you into its mouth before you know it has moved. The threshold does not usually assign plains drakes to first-cycle cadets. I think they assigned this one to see what the human was. Ozic found the drake first, because Ozic was fast and impatient and had run ahead of its partner, and that is exactly the mistake the plains want you to make. We watched it happen on the feed. We watched the bright, fast heat signature come around a ridge of black rock, alone, proud. And we watched the enormous cold shape of the drake. A heat hunter runs cold. That is how it hides, unfold from the ground where it had been waiting, and take Ozic in its jaws by the leg, and begin to drag the screaming Gaul back toward the deep dark where it would feed. Ozic screamed. I have heard many things scream. A Gaul's scream, when the pride finally breaks and the young animal underneath it understands it is going to die, I hope you never hear it. It is the sound of something learning, far too late, that it was never as safe as it believed. The human was 400 meters back. On the feed we saw it stop, and I remember Merrick saying, low, certain, "It'll run. Anything sane runs. It's a first cycle. It's not even armed properly. It'll leave the gall and it'll be right too. The human did not run. The human ran toward the screaming. I want to describe this exactly because I have thought about it every false night since. A soft, weak, weaponless thing, 400 meters from a plains drake that could kill a scarn, hearing the scream of a creature that had wanted it dead not 1 week before, and it went toward the drake. Not fast. Humans are not fast. It went at that terrible patient forever pace, the pace that never stops coming, and it did not go straight. It went low and wide and used the ground, reading the plane the way it read my strike in the ring, and it came around behind the drake in the dark while the drake was busy with Ozic, and it did the thing that humans do that no other species in the galaxy does. It used a tool it had made on the way. We did not know, watching the feed, what the human had been doing during the slow approach. Later we learned. It had taken the tracking spike from its own kit, the one piece of equipment every cadet carries, meant only to tag the target, and it had lashed it to a length of black plainswood with cord cut from its own uniform, and it had made, in the dark at a dead run, a spear. A weak soft thing that its ancestors, 100,000 years ago on a green world none of us had ever seen, had learned to make when they too were weak and soft and surrounded by things with real claws. It carried that ancestral answer across 400 meters of car, and it put it into the one place on a plains drake that is soft. The same instinct, do you see? The same instinct that found my throat in the drill ring. The human eye that looks at the strongest thing in the room and finds the one place it can die. The drake dropped Ozic. The drake turned on the human, which is what should have ended it, a plains drake turning its full attention on a thing that small. And the human, I will remember this until I feed the plains myself, the human did not back away from the turning drake. It stepped in under the jaws, too close for the jaws to reach, the way it had stepped inside my strike, and it worked the spear, and it was calm, it was working. And the great cold shape thrashed and screamed a sound I had never heard a drake make. And then it went down, and the plane was quiet, and there were 2 heat signatures still alive on the feed where there should have been none. The human dragged Ozic back to the beacon. Ozic could not walk, its leg was ruined. The human, a third of the gall's size, dragged 3 meters of wounded predator across kilometers of dark plain, slow, patient, never stopping, and it brought Ozic in alive. They both passed the hunt, together, as the trial demanded. And in the recovery bay, when the medical drones had stopped the bleeding and Ozic woke and understood what had happened, that the thing it had run ahead to prove itself against had been the thing that carried it home, Ozic did something no Gaul does. Gaul do not lower their crest to anyone. It is the deepest thing they have, crest pride, older than their cities. Ozic lowered its crest to the human, flat, all the way down, in front of the recovery bay, in front of the drones, in front of everyone. The human looked embarrassed. That is the truth. It did not want the lowered crest. It put its soft hand on Ozic's shoulder, the gesture I would later learn humans use, the one that means we are the same, get up, and it said something quiet that only Ozic heard, and Ozic got up, and Ozic was never loud again the way it had been loud, but Ozic would, from that day, have walked into the deep dark itself if the human asked. That was the first of us the human saved. It was not the last. It was not close to the last. After Ozic, it happened again and again, and each time it broke something in us and built something else. There was the W. Sith S. Serl, who went into venom shock during the toxin trial when a native thorn vine caught it wrong, and would have died in the dark alone if the human had not stayed. The human was not even in that trial. The human simply refused to leave, sat with the shaking dying W. Sith through the whole false night, and kept it warm with its own strange warm body until the drones came, because humans run hot. Did you know that? They are warm the way a machine is warm. They carry their own fire inside them. There was the Drawn, Vesic, who broke on the endurance trial, not the body, the mind, the way Drawn sometimes break when the patience finally runs out, and the fear they have swallowed their whole lives comes up all at once. Vesic sat down in the middle of the plane and would not move and was going to let the plane take it, and the human found it, and did not shout at it, and did not drag it, and did not report it. The human sat down next to it in the dark and waited, the way it had waited for the six-legged thing on the descent, patient, no waste. And after a long time the human began to talk. Just talk. About its green homeworld, about the things there, about the blue sky. A sky, do you understand? None of us had ever seen a sky. We came from a moon with no sun. And slowly the drone came back from wherever it had gone and stood up and walked and lived. The human never told anyone Vesic had broken. Vesic told us, cycles later, because Vesic could not carry it alone anymore. Do you see what was happening? Do you see it? We were apex predators. We had come from the tops of our worlds and we had never in our lives been saved by anyone, because there was never anything strong enough to save us and nothing we would have let, because to be saved is to admit you were prey. And we do not admit that. We are the top. We do not need. That is the whole shape of an apex soul. I do not need. We had been alone at the top of our worlds our whole lives and we had called that strength. And this soft, weak thing from the middle of its food chain, this thing that had never for one moment in its species' history been able to afford the lie of I do not need. This thing that came from a world where the only way up was together, where a single human alone was a dead human, and every one of them knew it in their bones. This thing kept walking out into the dark and carrying us home. It did not save us because it was strong. It saved us because it was weak, and had made weakness into the one strength we did not have. It knew, the way its whole species knew, that no one survives alone. It had come to a school full of the loneliest strong things in the galaxy, and it had started, one by one, to teach us the thing our worlds had never let us learn. We started to change. All of us. I do not know how else to say it. The upper cycle stopped placing bets on the intake platform. The drill rings got quieter and more careful because the human had shown us that there was a whole art of fighting that was not about being the biggest thing in the room, and we wanted it. We were hungry for it the way we had never been hungry before, because for the first time in any of our lives we had met something we could not simply overpower and we respected it. Ozic started teaching the younger Gaul to slow down. Cyril the W Sith started staying behind for the ones who fell. It spread. It spread like the human's fire, warm from soul to soul. And the instructors saw it. Of course they saw it. Vosh saw everything. But not all of them loved what they saw, because the threshold, understand, was not built to make us better. The threshold was built to make us lonely. That was the whole design. Graduate, fail, or feed the planes, and fail did not mean go home. I told you I would explain, and now I will. To fail at the threshold meant you were judged unfit to be a coalition apex, and unfit apexes were not released back into the galaxy, because an apex predator who knows it failed is the most dangerous thing there is. To fail meant the planes. There were only ever two doors: graduate or feed the dark. That is what we did not tell the new cadets, and that is why the fear at the threshold was real, and that is why what the human was doing, teaching us to carry each other. Teaching us that we could survive together what none of us could survive alone, was not just strange to the threshold. It was a threat to it. You cannot run an academy on fear and loneliness when someone in the walls is teaching everyone to stop being afraid and stop being alone. And so the threshold decided to kill the human. And that is the last thing I have to tell you, and it is the reason the predators begged. They called it a final assessment. That is the clean word for it. Vosh did not call it that. Vosh, who had trained cadets for 60 cycles and failed more of them than anyone, and who had said efficient and meant it. Vosh came to me in the sleeping tier in the false night alone, which instructors did not do, and Vosh's one gray eye found me in the dark, and Vosh said, "They are going to send your human into the deep dark, alone, against the marrow thing, tomorrow's false night. It is arranged as an assessment. It is not an assessment. It is a killing. They want the human gone before what it is teaching spreads past the point they can stop it." I said nothing for a moment. Then I said, "Why are you telling me?" And Vosh, Old Vash, who had put more cadets in the planes than any instructor alive, was quiet for a long time. And then Vash said the thing I did not expect, the thing that told me the change had reached even into the oldest, coldest part of the threshold. Because I have fed the planes for 60 cycles, Torvek, I have sent the failures into the dark and told myself it was mercy, that an apex who cannot be alone at the top is better dead. I believed that my whole life. The gray eye did not blink. The human showed me I have been feeding the planes the wrong thing. It was never the ones who could not stand alone that were unfit. It was the rest of us who could not do anything else. A pause. I am too old to change what I am. But I am not too old to warn you. Do what you will with it. Then Vash left, and I lay in the dark, and I listened to the wind breathing in the vents, and I made a decision that the creature who arrived at the threshold 2 cycles before, the one who laughed on the observation ring, could never have made. I woke the others. The marrow thing lives in the deep dark past the plains in the broken country where even the threshold's drones do not go. It is the reason there is a deep dark at all. It is not a predator the way the drake is a predator. It is old and it is enormous, and it does not hunt so much as it ends. It comes up out of the broken ground and it takes whatever is there, and there is nothing left. No kill, no blood, nothing. Only the absence of the thing that was. To send one cadet against it alone, weaponless in the false night, is not an assessment. Vash was right. It is a sentence. They came for the human at the changing of the light, when the gas giant dipped and the twilight went almost black. 2 instructor drones and the assessment master, a drawn colder even than Vash, and they took atom rays from the drill hall and marched it out past the beacon line, out past the edge of the trial ground, out toward the broken country, and they gave it nothing, and they turned to leave it there in the dark to be ended. And they found us waiting. All of us. The whole cycle and half the cycle below, and Ozic with its ruined leg that it had refused to let heal soft, and S. Serral the W. Sith, and Vesic the Drawn who had almost let the plane take it and now stood at the edge of the deep dark by choice. Merrick beside me. Skarn and Gal and W. Sith and Drawn and Korth, every apex the human had saved, and every apex who had watched it save the others. Standing in a line between the human and the broken country, in the dark, on the sunless moon, the deadliest young things in the galaxy. All of us there for the one soft, weak thing that had taught us we did not have to be alone. The assessment master looked at us with its cold, drawn eyes, and it said, "This is not your assessment. Return to your tears or you fail with it." Fail the planes. It was telling us, step aside or feed the dark alongside the human. And here is where the predators begged. I told you they would, and I told you I was there, and this is the part I need you to believe. We did not fight the assessment master. You do not fight the threshold. The threshold is not a creature, it is a weight, and there is no throat to find. So we did the other thing. The thing that no apex predator had done in the whole history of that black place. We asked. Ozic went down first, down onto the ground, its ruined leg folding under it, its crest flat, the deepest thing it had, and it said, "Take me instead." It carried me home. Take me and let it live. Then S. Serral, and me. It stayed with me in the dark when it did not have to take me. Then Vesic, the Drawn who had never asked anyone for anything because Drawn swallow everything. It sat with me when I broke. It never told. Take me instead of it. One by one down the line, the apex predators of the galaxy went down onto the black ground before the cold assessment master and begged, not for our own lives, understand. That is the thing. Not one of us begged for ourselves. We begged to be sent into the deep dark in the human's place. We begged for the right to die instead of it. Every one of us. Merrick, even me. I Torvik of the Skarn, who had laughed at it from the observation ring, who had come to the drill ring to humiliate it. I went down onto the black stone on the sunless moon, and I lowered my head to the ground before an instructor, and I asked to feed the planes so that the human would not. And Adam Reyes stood there in the middle of us, small in the too big uniform, and looked at the whole line of monsters kneeling in the dark for its sake. And for the first time since the shuttle ramp, I saw the human's face break. It had faced the Drake without fear. It had faced me without fear. It faced its own death without fear. It could not face this. Its eyes went wet. Humans do that. Their eyes make water when the thing inside them is too large, and it said, quiet, cracked, "Get up. All of you get up. Don't do this. Don't you dare do this for me." But we did not get up. We stayed down, because it had taught us. It had taught us the one thing our worlds never would, that no one is sent into the dark alone, not while the rest of us are standing. That was its lesson, and we had learned it, and now we were giving it back to the only one who had never had anyone give it to him. The assessment master looked at all of it, cold drawn eyes moving down the line of kneeling apexes. It had come to end one weak thing quietly. It had found the entire future of the Coalition's apex predators on its knees in the dark, having become, through one clerical error, something the galaxy had never made before, something strong that had learned to kneel for someone else. And behind us, out of the tower dark, came Vosh. Old Vosh, one gray eye, walked out onto the broken ground and stood between us and the assessment master, and Vosh said, in that flat voice that 60 cycles of cadets had learned to obey, "I have fed the plains longer than you have lived. I know what is fit and what is not." The gray eye swept the kneeling line, all of us, and then it settled on the human. "This is the first thing that has ever come through those black doors that was worth graduating. Send it into the dark, and you send all of them, and then you have no academy left to run. Choose." The assessment master was cold, but it was not stupid. Cold things rarely are. It looked at the arithmetic of it, the entire cadet body, the whole future crop of Coalition apexes, on their knees for one human ready to die in its place, already changed past the point where fear would ever fully work on them again. You cannot unteach what the human had taught. It was already in us. Killing the human would not remove it now. It would only make the human a thing we died for, and there is no fear in the galaxy stronger than a thing worth dying for. The assessment master turned and it left. It did not send the human into the dark. It could not. We had made it impossible kneeling. Adam Reyes graduated the threshold, first of his cycle, not because he was the strongest. He was, by every measure the threshold had ever used, the weakest thing that ever passed through it. He graduated first because Vosh changed the measure. Vosh, in the last year before the old Dron finally went into the plains by choice, the way old Dron do, rewrote what the threshold assessed. Not who can stand alone at the top, who can make the ones around them stronger, who carries the fallen home. The human's measure, the measure of a species that clawed up from the middle and never once believed the lie that any of us could make it alone. I graduated too. So did Ozic, ruined leg and all. So did S. Serl and Vesic and Merrick. The whole changed cycle went out into the galaxy as Coalition apexes, and we did not go out as the lonely killing things the threshold had been built to make. We went out as something new, and the something new spread, the way it had spread through the tears from soul to soul, warm like fire. They still put humans in with us now on purpose in every Apex Academy in the sector. It is doctrine. They call it the Reyes Protocol. One human in among the monsters. Not to fight them, the human always loses the fighting at first, though not for long. To change them. To teach the strongest things in the galaxy the one thing their strength had cost them. I command a Coalition Apex unit now. Skarn, Gaul, W. Sith, Dron, Korth, the deadliest sort, the ones they send when there is nothing left to say. And there is a human in my unit because I requested one, because I know now what a human is for. When the young apexes under me swagger in from their finished worlds, certain they need no one, certain that I do not need his strength, I put them in a drill ring with the human, and I let them learn what I learned, flat on my back with a soft hand at my throat and a quiet voice saying yield. And then I tell them what I have told you. I killed 31 things before the human came. I have killed more since. I am not soft and my kind do not cry. but I have knelt in the dark on a sunless moon and begged to die in the place of a thing that came up to my ribs. And I would do it again, tonight, without a moment's thought. The galaxy made us the top of our worlds, and thought that made us the strongest. It took a soft, weak thing from the middle of its own food chain, a thing that should have died on the shuttle ramp, to teach every apex predator in the sector the truth our thrones had hidden from us our whole lives. The strongest thing in any room has never been the one who stands alone. It is the one who kneels for someone else.